Last year, the fifth-gear Mario brothers, Jason and Jimmy,
I like your hat. In fact, I like your khaki colour.
It's nice, isn't it?
tried out 2 fully electric vans, and they weren't impressed because you couldn't even get 100 miles between charges.
The range is 82 miles.
82 miles. That isn't great, is it?
In fact, that figure halved once they loaded up some washing machines.
Well, we've lost a mile already.
Pretty quickly to the 2. It's just gone again.
But now a new breed of EV van is emerging that claims to go further between recharges. We've grabbed the 2 leading contenders to find out if they're a step forward should you want to lug some light goods around. This is the Fiat E-Ducato. Now, the Ducato name has been around for over 40 years, and the manufacturer says that this is the best-selling van in Europe, with 150,000 sales per year.
Yeah, but let's be honest. If you're going to buy a van, you want one with a transit badge on it. It's been around since 1965, and they've built over 8.5 million of these. Come on, it's a no-brainer.
But is it going to be as good now it's called the E-transit? Fiat first?
Why not?
We'll be doing 3 tests today. The first will discover what the vans are like to live with. Ergonomically, immediately I have brushed myself against the handbrake, which is quite protruding down there.
So a couple of bits I've spotted straight away.
Yeah.
That there, that's got to be the Italian espresso holder, isn't it? Because your latte is definitely not going to stay in there.
No, I agree with that.
And then the other thing was, like, what's going on here?
What is that doing?
And then you've got that thing in the corner with a wire, like a visible wire coming out the bag. It's like they've just drilled a hole in to stick that panel in for the EV info.
First impressions are that it lacks a little polish and practicality. Right, let's get my big van head on. But perhaps things will improve on the road. To assess the range of our electric vans, we drove them the same 7-mile route around Milton Keynes, the kind of urban multi-drop environment that these vehicles have been designed for.
Crucially, because of the roundabouts and the number of traffic lights, your leaden foot will be vaguely kept under control.
We'll take a note of the battery level at the start of our journey. 74% of battery charge.
I'll write these down so I don't forget.
And then we'll see what it's dropped to by the end and calculate the real-world range, at least our version of it. We are in eco mode, regen.
On.
On, everything's on. White van man and woman, please note, eco mode limits the E-Ducato to 50 miles an hour top speed, and 0 to 30 takes 6 seconds, so more tortoise than hare. So we have 2 trim levels available in this van, an entry level and then this, which is the E-Technico. And for that, you get Apple CarPlay and Auto Android. You get a sat-nav.
Oh.
And a leather steering wheel. But to be honest with you, this just feels really plasticky.
It's probably
unusual cow, that's for sure. So I don't feel that I'm being cosseted.
No.
Mind you, you would expect a bit of luxury when you consider this van costs £70,000, and that includes a £5,000 government grant.
All right, Vix, we're coming back to our start point. We've done just about 7 miles.
Yep.
So, what is your percentage?
My percentage is 68%.
Right, so you have used up 6% of your battery.
Okay.
Based on our drive, it means the van should be good for 116 miles between charges, which ties in with Fiat's own figures. They estimate the E-Ducato's 47 kilowatt battery will deliver a range between 102 and 139 miles. Things have certainly moved on since the Mario brothers first tested E-vans. How does the E-Transit compare? The Transit is a legend in the world of vans, with almost 1 million currently on British roads. Can this Transit carry on that weighty reputation? The E-Transit's cheaper than the Fiat, but only by £5,000.
Now, I've got 98% as we set off on our journey, and this tells me I can do 156 miles.
Ford say the Transit should be good for between 166 and 196 miles. Hopefully, the van's computer will take a more optimistic view as our trip around Milton Keynes continues. Vicky seems more excited about the van than its range, though.
Karun, I need to show you so much about this thing. You have got loads of storage space up here.
Magazines?
Magazines, clipboards.
Oh, clipboard for delivery people.
Yeah.
Clipboards. And actually, the door pockets are easier to reach, isn't it?
Okay.
Now, one thing that is hugely different between this and the Fiat is that the Ford has got 261 horsepower. Now, that's more than double
Wow.
what the Fiat's got.
Yeah.
And it's got more torque at 430 Newton meters compared to the Ducato's 280.
And so this is more powerful, it's got more torque, but it's cheaper.
And it's cheaper. It's £5,000 cheaper than the Fiat.
On top of that, it's only 7 grand more than the equivalent diesel.
The fact that battery technology is still expensive, the reality is, 7,000 is not a lot more.
And there's more good stuff.
I love the fact that they've basically nicked the 12-inch screen from the Ford Mac.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And you can get over-the-air updates on it. You can work out when you plug in, where's available.
And the screen lets you access 3 drive modes.
You got the normal, you got eco, and then you got a wet mode, actually. It's
Slippery.
Yeah.
I love it.
Which basically is for people who aren't used to EVs and that instant acceleration,
And
it just manages the torque.
Somebody's properly thought this through. This is it, we're done. Done and dusted.
So, I've used just 3% of my battery to do a 7-mile drive,
Yep.
which on paper you go, well, that's only half the number of percentage that you have. However, this does have a bigger battery. It's got a 68 kilowatt hour battery.
Based on our little test, the Transit could cover up to 200 miles between recharges, around twice what the E-Ducato could do. Although you could argue it's got a bigger battery, it's also a cheaper van. So that's not cheating. It's time for a verdict on our test 1, which is how good the vans are to live with. You've probably guessed our victor.
Thanks for breakfast. I don't actually eat bacon, so you can have both of them.
Yes. Result.
So,
Up front, I found that the Ford was more comfortable and more special.
well, yeah. I mean, it just felt like they'd made an effort. The touchscreen was really good. The cubby holes were easily reachable. And, you know, the fact that the range is going to be pushing 200 miles, that's pretty
Yeah.
good.
So the winner for this one then is the Ford E-Transit.
I think the winner is you with your double bacon roll.
For our second test, we're going to check how good our vans are at swallowing a large load.
And we have come to a DIY store because building materials come in all sorts of shapes and sizes.
Now, it's not just about volume, is it, Vix? It's about also seeing how easy it is to load up these vans.
Yep, and also about payload, the weight
Yep.
that they can carry. I will be keeping score.
Okay.
First of all,
Yeah.
how many anchor points have you got?
Ooh. 1, 2, 3,
4, 5, 6, 7.
7, 8, 9. That's it. I've got 9. What have you got?
15.
What? I've got 9.
9? Not even double figures.
Oh.
Oh, didn't. Oh, dear. Oh.
Yes, yes, yes. Very good. Fine. 1 point to the Fiat. What's next?
Ease of loading.
Ooh. Anyone who's loaded up a van or a car for that matter will know that the distance you have to lift the luggage off the ground makes a big difference to the effort involved.
Here, I'm going to get my measuring stick. And although you've got this sort of little lip to help you get in, when you get to the top, what's that? 170.
Yep. 162.
So
That
about
is...
almost 10 centimetres lower, which is better for loading.
Yep. 2 points for Fiat. There's a lot of winning happening here so
Well,
far.
doing good so far. Let's get some stuff in here, see
Okay.
what we can fit.
I'll
Whoa,
go get-
whoa, whoa, it's manual labour. It's not my department. So we have the lovely Dave and Cara. They're
Yep.
currently bringing in a fence panel, 6 foot by 6 foot.
That went in pretty easily.
That's gone in a treat, hasn't it?
And I think these MDF balls.
They're not. These are not MDF, darling. These are OSBs.
Oh, you are so educated
I
in
know.
the DIY world.
Thank you. Anyway, they're 8 foot by 4 foot, and they are quite heavy, and they've gone in a treat as well.
Should we go look
Yeah.
next door?
Thank you very much, team. Time to do the Ford.
Right, I'm slightly concerned that these guys are going to battle a bit more to get into this,
Oh yeah, I think they definitely will have a struggle.
as clearly illustrated here. So, oh, it's actually rubbing against the roof already.
Yeah.
And you can't actually prop it up against the
Oh,
side like they
interesting.
could with the other one.
Yeah.
So that's not going to work. Yeah, just leave it there, guys. Just,
I mean, feel
Yeah.
free to give them a hand,
I mean-
Karun.
I'm not qualified. I haven't got gloves.
Now, I'm not surprised that you are struggling because you aren't as big as the Fiat. The Fiat's got 13 cubic metres of space in here, and you have got...
11, so that's going to have to go.
Karun almost got involved.
I touched it. I touched the thing. I touched the fence.
The Ford loading bay is 15 centimetres shorter and 10 centimetres narrower than the Fiat. There is a high roof version available on the Ford for around £1,000.
So I think we could pretty conclusively say another point for the Fiat.
Yes.
Should we get some big fat payloads in?
Yep, off you go. Hey! The Ford has already lost the load test. However, will it recover a bit of pride when it comes to dealing with weight?
Right, what we've got is a bag, which is just about a ton.
So the Ducato can have 1,060 kilograms of weight, and the lovely Sam is going to deposit 1,000 kilograms in there now. Oh,
I mean, that is precision before he goes donk. Oh, wow.
ooh,
See how much that moved?
yeah.
Perhaps it's not surprising that the van groaned a bit, as our bag is only 60 kilos short of the maximum weight permitted. How will the Transit fare?
Right, let's check the suspension then as this drops down. Oh, I like seeing that because you can really see
Yeah.
the impact that the weight has on the van. Brilliant. So, the Fiat can take 1,060 kilograms and the Ford 980 kg. That is an 80 kilogram difference.
Right then, what's the conclusion?
Well, it's not looking great for the Transit. In fact, it's lost all of its load-based tests. The suspension seemed to manage the bag of sand well, but the Ducato can handle more weight. So it's a clean sweep here for the Fiat.
So scores are 1-1.
Yeah.
Should we go on the road and
Yeah,
see what
do
they're
let's.
like now we've got a bit of load in it?
Oh, yeah!
All right, let's go.
Jason and Jimmy discovered in the last series EV vans can throw a bit of a wobbly when they're asked to cart some weight around.
Now hang on. That's flat to the floor. That's not accelerating now.
That's poor, eh?
Yeah.
So how will our vans react with a ton of sand in the back? That's around their maximum payload. And for that reason, I've picked Karun out. He might be compact, but every kilo counts. We have chosen a route that has got a few hills, but nothing too silly. And with 280 Newton meters of torque in my Ducato, I think this should cope pretty well, even with the extra load on board.
280 Newton meters? I laugh in your face, BBH.
The Ford E-Transit is the most powerful electric van in the market today. And with 261 horsepower and 430 Newton meters of torque, it should absolutely smash any performance that the Fiat can put together. But with a ton of weight in the back, it'll be interesting to see just what the consumption numbers are like, because when we drove around earlier, actually it was pretty good, to be honest. It will dip. I'll be interested to see, just with the hills, what a difference that makes.
Karun, I might have 150 Newton meters of torque less than you and be lacking horsepower. But right now, I'm moving along quite nicely. I can barely notice that I've got a load on board. Honestly, it just feels a tiny, weeny bit heavier at the back than before. However, I've got a few issues elsewhere. The noise on these roads has definitely increased in the cabin. I can hear the suspension going over potholes, and I can definitely feel it as well. And another problem is looming on the horizon. Here comes a hill. Oh, crikey. I'm in eco mode. Oh, foot on the throttle. That is my foot flat on the throttle. It's not picking up very well. I'm going to switch modes to power mode. Into power mode, and this behaves very much like a normal petrol diesel van. In eco mode, acceleration is limited, but in power mode, it unleashes all of its grunt and top speed increases from 50 to 62 miles an hour. My range is going to be zapped pretty quickly, so I'm going to pop it back into eco ASAP.
I've yet to reach any hills, but I'm enjoying the ride of the E-transit, which has finally ditched its ancient leaf spring suspension.
I have to say, on this bumpy B road I'm driving along, it's actually a pretty comfortable ride. And actually, I'm not even having to go to full throttle. I'm at maybe 40% on the throttle, and it's pretty effortlessly climbing up.
OK, Karun, I get it. Your van is better on hills, but owning an EV isn't all about power. Both vehicles could save you as much as £13,000 in fuel over 95,000 miles, and an EV van could be 40% cheaper to service.
Let's talk warranties. Ford will give you 3 years or 60,000 miles, whichever comes first. But more importantly, when it comes to the electrical components, including the battery, you'll get 100,000 miles of warranty.
Which isn't as good as the Fiat, which gets a 5-year or 100,000 mile warranty and 5 years free roadside assistance. And the battery is warranted for 8 years or 100,000 miles, whichever comes sooner. Our drive is now coming to an end. What effect had a ton of sand done to our range? Empty, the Fiat had a 160-mile range, but loaded up, this dropped to 75. The Ford dropped from a 200-mile range to 122 miles. Important figures to bear in mind if you often carry heavy loads. So we think then that the Ford definitely won the first test. We found it more agreeable inside.
Yep.
This won the second test for different shapes and sizes to go in the back, and then you've won the third.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, the Ford is £5,000 cheaper, it's got better range, and it's faster. So really, no-brainer.
Yeah. So do we think then that these vans have now become fit for purpose?
I think if Jimmy and Jason got back in these after seeing 2 years of development, they'd be really impressed.
So it's the mighty Ford which gets the prize for the van that's managed its transformation to electric power the best. If you decide to buy one, remember you aren't obliged to wear the same uniforms as us, unless you really want to.